Hello, it's Collette from the Sacred Rose Temple, and I am giving you this week's energy forecast through video instead, just to get your opinion on what you prefer, the video podcast or the audio. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that. But I want to talk about this week's energy, and I'm sorry to inform you that yet again, there is much happening in our collective and the cosmos, and clearly because radical change is needed on this planet. We're going through a catacomb of deep transformation. The world is spewing up all that's wrong with it. And of course, this is all material and matter for us as human beings to take a hold of and take it on an inward journey into ourselves to say, if the world looks like this, how am I contributing to it? Because I am a part of that ocean. I think that's something I've been harping on about since the beginning of time, that whatever we see that we like or don't or love, in fact, it's a reflection of us because we make up the whole collective. But let's talk about what happened this weekend. We've seen that the 26th is about that new Mayan or galactic gateway that they call it. And as an earth-based practitioner, I really follow quite an ancient Celtic way of cycle and rhythm now through ceremony and ritual. But I'm also really deeply drawn to the cosmological. I think that I feel a place between Earth and the stars, that I am a conduit of both, and both have an impact on me. The astrology has an impact on me. The Earth and her cycles have an impact on me too. So I kind of really work with both of those aspects because they resonate deeply for me. And the new galactic opening, which was, happening on the 26th, it's seen as a Mayan New Year as well, brings in a new, different type of energy and a new frequency. And I really did feel that something had opened up in my psyche. There was a distinct change in how I felt. But that was also really laced with deep tiredness. Last week, I felt so tired. The stars have been playing in this role of just making us slow down, feeling really tired. I just couldn't get enough sleep. So I honored that in my body. But the stillness actually allowed for some deeper reflection. So when we're ever feeling that pull of just a little bit more stillness, a little bit more sleep, I was able to allow the dreamscape to talk to me. I had quite a lot of dreams that I analysed, and also just some deeper space to relax and to get in bed and feel over things and just realize some things that needed changing and that wanted to get its attention in my life. So really allowing when tiredness or slowness comes to understand that it's part of the cycle, and it's also trying to show us something that we need to work with. But that really feeds onto the Lionsgate energy, which we're currently in at the moment. That started also on the 26th. We're in this Lionsgate portal. And the Lionsgate portal is when Leo aligns with Sirius, Orion's belt, and the Earth. And it creates this corridor that allows us to think deeply about what we want. It allows us to think, like, what has the past been showing me recently? And how do I then manifest or think or imagine of a new future with this behavior or this pattern or whatever it was behind me? What does the future look like? And it's important in this corridor to imagine that. What is it you're looking for? What is it you're imagining? What do you want to bring into your life? And spend some time in that energy, because what we're sending out in this corridor is in fact what is wanting to be received by us. So just spend the time in that new energy that you want. If you're still caught up in the loops and patterns of the old, it's going to carry through this door, and we really don't want that. We need a mass collective change of energy on this planet. The other things that is happening, as if it's not enough already, is that we've got many planets in retrograde. So Pluto is in retrograde, Neptune is in retrograde, Saturn, Mercury, and Chiron. So they are all going backwards. And when planets go backwards, we're kind of digging over old stuff. We're allowing some reflection. There may be patterns and wounds coming up. So Pluto really asks us to dig deep. to feel where we've been giving our power away, particularly in the shadow realms of relationships, control, and authority. These are big ones for me at the moment. Pluto's really working within my chart. And I think the question here is that giving power away. We're seeing in our world where we have given power away to governments, to medical systems, to structures in our world that actually have not had our best interests at heart. They've had their own. We can see this with the wars going on in the world. There is mass genocide in our world, and that is not on the back of individuals. These are structures created by our psyche, of course, but that are leading these dark, evil forces into mass scale killing. This isn't only happening in Palestine. I've been sharing on my social media posts about this, but it's happening in other places like Yemen, like in Iran. There are places in our world all now where mass genocide is happening and control is happening. I only have to flick through my Instagram to see the control measures that are being implemented within our world. And we are dangerously slipping into Big Brother states that will be deeply controlling for us as humans. I was hearing last week that in England, there's a new passport that is allowing people, once you've left the country 3 times, it then flags you up for the 4th time. Why? Where are you going? Do you have enough money to go? Crazy. I believe that the same in the UK, the phone calls after 20 minutes are starting to be recorded and held in a data bank. This is not okay. You know, we have personal autonomy, we have the right for privacy, and we are slowly losing it. And that is just 2 examples. I know there are many across the world. So where do we allow these things to come in? Where do we allow the control? Where do we not stand up as humans with individual rights and say, actually, we don't want this? I think if the collective got stronger, we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing. And I think a lot of people that I know, especially in relation to genocides, is what do we do? How do we support this? Does the money really get there? If aid's not getting in, where is my money going? And how do I have a bigger voice? How do I stand up? I don't vote. I just refuse to vote for those systems who wage war on people. I don't believe there's a left and a right. I believe there's one big bird that is corrupt, and the whole systems need an overriding. And I want to be part of that overriding energy that says none of this is working. On a personal level, that will go within the structure of your relationships with people. What isn't working, what is, where you're trying to control, where you're not aligned with the divine. I've kept seeing this week that same statement of where you control, the divine doesn't. And so just trying to sit back in relationship and say, like, what is trying to be shown to me here? And if I just let go of my grip, what would go? Because that was more in alignment with the divine. So big stuff for Pluto. With Neptune, we're in, like, it's peeling back this inertia, this kind of deep, dreamy fog that we've been in, and it's trying to wake up the levels of denial in us. We're seeing behind the real veils, whether we like it or not. So we're seeing the veil of the structure in which our society is built upon. We're seeing the veil of the medical system that we once trusted, the politicians that we once trusted. We're starting to get a sense of our own authority and discernment, and beginning for some of us to say, something's not right. And do I blindly follow instructions and advice of others without doing my own research? I've often been called out about this a lot in my life, where I don't actually take the words. I have a deep rebel and I prefer to do my own research than listen to any authority, whether it be medical, political, or parental, to be honest. I know about the wounds, I know about the darkness of structures, so I'd sooner do my own investigation. And I've been called out many times about sharing information that's in polarity and opposition to what's being shared in the mainstream. But I am so excited to see over the last couple of years, and I think COVID was the catalyst for this, that there is deep change going on, that there is a deep movement of understanding that the world isn't as it appears, and we're often led astray. So pull back the veils. What are you in an illusionary field about, so specifically to do with your own life, who you believe, and maybe some illusions around people and relationships too. Saturn is all about having accountability. It's showing us where we need to karmically clean up, especially around boundaries and responsibility and the systems that we've inherited or upheld. I've made a lot of realizations that some of the specific imprints that were put upon me as a child, societal or otherwise, have actually had a negative impact on me, and they don't truly belong to my deeper soul imprint. So just challenging some of the beliefs that you have had or held so that you can be more accountable for some of your behaviors, and you can release some of the karma that you have acquired. I said this to my son this week after a certain situation, that karma is instant. There's this deep sense of injustice that we feel when we've been wronged, or that someone's affected us in a certain way. But if you have a trust in the bigger picture and the divine, we begin to understand that nothing is overlooked. Every act is fed back, either because it's a good act or because it's a bad act. And I really like to believe that if I'm acting honorably in the best way I can, if I'm doing what's right, not because I'm wounded or I'm triggered, and it happens. I mean, it happens to us all with the best intentions, but really spending time to analyze my behavior and say, is that right? Is that good? Because if it isn't, karma is going to feed back straight away. I don't need to hide it from anyone. I don't need to try to be in the shadows and bury, because instantly that's going to be served back. So just remembering that within that Saturn, that karmic cleanup is necessary. So that might be apologizing, going back, saying, sorry, I shouldn't have done that, or just in some ways you feel you can karmically clean up. But remembering that actions from this point onward create karma, and try to be as clean as possible, try to be as good and as compassionate as possible, and try to understand that every action that you take has a direct reverse reaction upon you. And that helps us kind of keep in alignment with our behaviors. We're going to see that Mercury retrograde plays its constant, work with us in trying to realign our actions, miscommunications, not being clear. It's kind of taken us back and saying, where did you miscommunicate? Where can you communicate better? What has been overlooked? What wounds, what pains need to be seen? What relationships from the past come up? I've had a couple come up in the last couple of days where I'm like, oh no, not again, not again. I thought I was done with that. Clearly not. And trying to come from a new standpoint, trying to be in the framework of the karma, understanding that how I behave has an instant and opposite reaction, and the same with the other person. So leaving it in the hands of the divine for me in this case. So what's coming up for you with previous and past, and how can you behave around that differently? With the Chiron retrograde, we've got the ancient ache of the wounded one, or the wounded healer. And I think that this is huge around the feminine. I really believe that spiritually women have been rising in the divinity and the divine feminine, but I've really felt some deep creepings in this week of an energy against that. And while I am a white privileged woman, I speak from a standpoint of that privilege, and I get it, I understand that, and that there are many women around the world who don't. I see the subjugation of women who are being silenced and being treated less than, not even men, but less than humans. I witnessed some horrific stuff in Bangladesh, where women's rights have been kind of spoken about, and men have been hanging up effigies of feminine and beating them with sticks, and as an outburst saying that women don't have these rights. I'm watching my sisters in Iran being silenced more and more, being veiled, even their eyes are closed. There's laws saying that they can't even speak to anybody. They can't speak among other women. They can't sing. This is crazy times we're living in. And it really kind of is important that we, within the spiritual framework, who have privilege, understand that when we say, oh, the divine feminine is rising, we might feel that inside of us, but that isn't the common story across the world. There are our sisters who are not feeling that the divine feminine is rising. They are feeling that they are being absolutely persecuted for being women. And I don't believe we've made any progress as women until collectively we make a shift together. And that's why I teach women, and I do teach women who are more privileged, in the hope that we all as a collective field understand that there are others less than privileged, and we have a responsibility in some way, shape or form to support and help. And the radicalization of our own feminine spirituality and psychology must shift enough to help others and to include them in when we talk about where the feminine really is at. So I think for me, this is super important that we see this at this time, that when we talk about the divine feminine rising, we understand that sometimes we're seeing that from our own bias and our own privileged place, when indeed women all over the world are still being executed, treated less than a human. We're seeing in Palestine now, I think 67% of deaths are accounted for by females and children. This is not okay. This is a collective symbol that something's deeply wrong in our society, and that it has a massive reflection on our relationship with women and the mother, and then the planet as the feminine. And there is deep work we all need to do here. I share this amongst women that I know when I see on my feeds, women being starved, beaten, not being able to speak in certain countries. And then in the West, where I see women, patriarchy, the use of Botox and fillers and facial surgery, which seems to be hammered more in, like the bigger boobs you've got, the bigger lips, the less wrinkly your face, the more you're a perfect woman. This is patriarchal bullshit. And unless we stand against that as women, we're colluding with it. We're colluding with the sexualization. We're colluding with that the only thing that we are as women is pretty. We're colluding with the thing that the divine feminine is an energetic force, an oracle, a wisdom keeper, and she's essential for this earth. And in fact, the way she looks is the least thing about her. And until we're all on that page, we're not going to see the collective change at all. We need to stop the sexualization of ourselves. And that doesn't mean sexual liberation. I'm all for sexual liberation, but I am against sexualization of the feminine. I think it creates a really distorted field, and it's something we really need to look at this time. And specifically because we've just had a shift of Venus into Cancer. The perfume of Venus is very strong around me, having been, I'm a Taurian and I carry a lot of Venus energy. But Venus carries a lot of that feminine influence on our planet. And when she shifts into another sign, we feel that on this planet. And Venus is shifting into Cancer this week. And what that means is that Cancer is the mother, Cancer is home, Cancer is deep femininity, and that's going to bring all this stuff up. So everything I've just shared, we're looking at this through this Venus landscape, and the Venus landscape is calling us back home to the inner world of the feminine. Whether you're a man or a woman, it makes no difference. Like, what is your relationship with the feminine? Are you aware of the vast array of women on our planet, and ones particularly who are less advantaged than you? What is your relationship like with your mother? Have you done any healing around that? Have you understood the wounds that you carry from the feminine lineage and what you seem in this life to be trying to overcome or mend for your feminine line? What is your relationship like with other women? What's your relationship like with the inner woman in you? How kind are you with her? Do you sexualize her? Do you care deeply about her? Do you support her? Do you speak out? All of these things are super important as we come into Venus in Cancer. It's the heartbeat, I'd say, of the feminine Venus. And as she moves into this Cancer sign, we're really going to be feeling the uprising of the feminine energy within us and the world, and all that needs to change. She is under attack still, and she always has been. And if we call into the mother wound on a personal and collective level, we can feel the places where we've been abandoned by the feminine ourselves. We can feel the places where we have been silenced by the feminine, where the feminine within us is silent in the face of patriarchal harm, where we collude with the patriarchy, like I've just shared, in being sexual, over sexualization of your body, or with the way that you feel your appearance is really important, and you're willing to put in toxic injections into your face in order to fit a certain look that patriarchy is established to keep actually all your power down. Where do we feel as women that someone else will save us? Our husband, our partner will support us financially, emotionally, physically. Where are we still unable to meet ourselves in all levels as a woman? What do we buy into that's toxic against feminine and feminine energy? So this isn't about sex, but really, truly about feminine energy, and women and men hold equal parts feminine energy. And I think this is deep healing that needs to happen to men, for them to recognize their anima, their feminine aspect, and how they heal that within themselves and their relationship to the mother. That's really, really important. And that's not bypassing saying, I'm just best friends with my mum and she's great, when there's a whole truckload of wounding that needs to be addressed. So I wrote down some questions, some thoughtful things that you can reflect upon with this very strong perfume of Venus in Cancer. So we're going to feel like we're craving emotional intimacy and soulful connection. This has really been big for me. I'm really seeking community on a deep soulful level, not on surface, not on the mundane, but I'm really searching for my deep spiritual, physical community. And I ask you, where your soulful connections are you in the right community or around the right people? And are you craving emotional intimacy? If so, where did you get that? Who did you get that from? And where are you allowing in connection that isn't fulfilling that? And what do you need to do with that? So secondly, we might feel like we're mourning the spaces we haven't felt safe or been able to soften. And I think as a woman, that is going to impact us a lot as we move through this Venus in Cancer. I am feeling this deeply in my own healing world, that there was many times I felt unsafe as a woman. I was sharing this with a man this week, that hunting me down on Facebook and inboxing me was not okay, and that it made me feel unsafe. And my social media is mainly for my work, and that had crossed a boundary for me, and I was able to share that and voice that but he wasn't able to take that. And then that just made me block that energy. There are many spaces where we as women don't feel safe because we know the stories of what's happened to us. We know where we have been fearing for our lives and feeling that something sexual might happen to us. This lives within the feminine psyche, and it takes some tolerance for men to understand that sometimes we're behaving in ways because we haven't felt safe, because something's happened to us or other women. And I think we need to hold more boundaries around that. And I think we could call and invite in the masculine to understand that better. And if you're a man, to realize that interactions with women often need to have you holding such a divine masculine space so that women do feel safe, and honoring that when they don't, it's not something to criticize or hack someone down on, but to say, oh, I don't, why do you feel this way? Share with me why. So there just seems to be this weaving, and that's come up for me this week. There is also on the third place to talk about the mother archetype, the mother we had and the mother we needed. There is a lot of bypassing that can happen around the relationship with the mother. But truly, can you go to the space where you say, this is what I didn't get and I would have liked? It's not to criticize our mother. It's not to tear her down, but to realize that something deep inside of us wasn't nurtured. It wasn't given. What were those things? That will really help you understand your relation between not only the masculine, but other women too. And that also builds the relationship of your own internal mother complex. So yeah, I have a deep over mothering complex because of my relationship with my mother. And that then is work for me to do, to understand why I am behaving that way and why I do that. So think about your mother wound, external and internal. And then finally, talking about the sacred feminine, talking about the divine feminine, what needs protection and devotion in our own hearts? What needs protection and devotion that we hold within our own hearts? I'm a deep protector of the feminine and life on this planet, and how we aren't living in full femininity. We're still not safe enough. We're still not honored and worshipped. I worry that the future will get worse in that situation, that as the population diminishes, I see that there's a lot of the bigger family leaving and losing as we've wanted to gain more independence as women. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's diluted the population of feminine that holds liberation and freedom. And as populations tend to grow that hold negative associations to the feminine and treatment of the feminine, we find ourselves in a worrying time. We don't want the treatment of women to be the version that is bad and silenced and not equal or even less than human to make up our world's population. So we as women have to do the work, who hold the voice, who hold the freedom at the minute, to share this with daughters, to share this with women around us, to spread this out, that the women should be honored, we should be worshipped. And in order to do that, we need to heal on many levels, including our relationship with the masculine, because there is a mutual respect. When the feminine is honored, she also honors the masculine. So we've got a lot of work to do, haven't we? So yeah, I'm feeling quite emotional about this podcast. It has been very, very potent in my dreams. I analyze my dreams through a Jungian analytical lens, and I've been receiving lots of dreams for my future technologies course and for the Druid course that I'm going to be running with Shift Network in the next coming weeks. And so, yeah, feeling a great pressure on me as a woman with a voice, with privilege, to actually do the most I can to share about the ancient sacredness of the feminine and the power that we hold to change this world into a more loving, compassionate, peaceful place that allows all beings equality and all beings to be devoted and worshipped, for us to be seen as divine, whether we're a woman, we're a man, whether we come from Africa or England, whether we're from an animal species, it's irrelevant. We are creations of God. And what we need to understand is that anything that separates us from another, anything that makes us want to hurt another, is fundamentally wrong, whatever name it comes under. And so I'm sending a big prayer out to all the women in the world that are undergoing colossal damage and pain, sacrifice, genocide, rape, starvation, watching their children die. So just asking you to join me for a moment as we really truly connect our hearts together and create a unified field that tells these women that we are behind them. We are not ignoring their suffering, and we are trying to do everything we can to not be part of this patriarchal genocide that's going on in the world. We are not part of it. We do not stand for it. And we pray to Creator that we really learn deep lessons from this, and it changes us on a deep level to be better human beings. So with a lot of love and a lot of emotion, I sign out from this podcast, and I look forward to seeing you, sharing next week. If this has struck a note with you, this podcast, please share. I hope to get deeper into the psyche of the collective, and sharing our work as women is part of caring. It's part of releasing us from the grips of what's happening in our world. So I appreciate your comments and your shares. Bye for now. Take care. Much love.